The crystalline meditation chamber aboard Kexthal's personal vessel hummed with an otherworldly resonance as holographic contract details shimmered in the purple-tinted air. The assassin's translucent form shifted, catching starlight in ways that would have mesmerized most species. But Kexthal wasn't concerned with appearance. Their attention was fixed on the numbers floating before them. Fascinating, they whispered, their voice a symphony of harmonic frequencies. The payment offered was unprecedented. 50 million galactic credits, enough to buy a small moon in the outer rim. Their 4 hearts began beating in an unusual pattern, something that hadn't happened in over a century. The target's image rotated slowly in the center of the chamber. Catherine Kate Morrison, Earth's representative to the Galactic Trade Council. Her official hologram showed a human female with confident posture and an expression that humans called a smile. Kexthal had eliminated 47 different species across 3 centuries, but humans were relatively new to the galactic scene. Computer, display target background. Kexthal commanded, their crystalline fingers weaving through the holographic interface. The chamber filled with data streams, news reports, and security footage. Catherine Morrison had emerged as a powerful voice for Earth's inclusion in the major trade routes. In just 6 months, she had managed to convince 12 previously opposed species to support Earth's petition. Most remarkably, she had done this without any significant political backing or financial leverage, just pure diplomatic skill and what humans called charm. Kexthal's probability sensors tingled. Something about this contract felt different. The payment was too high for a simple diplomatic elimination. They accessed their neural interface, running preliminary calculations on success probability. The numbers came back strange. Kexthal ran them again. Still strange. For the first time in 300 years, their probability calculations showed fluctuating variables. Normally, they could predict the likelihood of successful elimination down to 0.01%. But with Morrison, the numbers kept shifting, as if the very act of calculating her future was changing it. Computer, enhance security footage of target. Kexthal commanded, their curiosity piqued. The chamber filled with various scenes from Morrison's daily life. She moved unpredictably, often stopping to interact with random beings, helping carry packages, giving directions, even once preventing a fight between 2 Centaurian merchants just by making them laugh. Irregular behavioral patterns detected, the computer announced unnecessarily. Kexthal could see that for themselves. Most targets followed routines, making them easy to predict and eliminate. Morrison seemed to actively avoid patterns. Still, no target had ever escaped Kexthal. Their ability to manipulate probability itself made them the galaxy's deadliest assassin. When Kexthal decided something would happen, the universe usually rearranged itself to comply. The contract terms were simple. Catherine Morrison needed to be eliminated before she could attend the Galactic Trade Summit in 3 Earth months. The method was left to Kexthal's discretion, with one crucial requirement. It had to look like an accident. The Galactic Confederation couldn't risk making Earth a martyr. Kexthal's outer layer rippled with anticipation as they pressed their palm against the contract sensor, formally accepting the assignment. The chamber dimmed momentarily as the credits were transferred to their secure account. Begin preliminary probability calculations for elimination scenarios. They commanded, settling into their meditation pose. The chamber hummed louder, processing countless variables and potential outcomes. As the calculations stringed around them, Kexthal felt something they hadn't experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. But that only made it more interesting. After all, what was the point of being the galaxy's greatest assassin if you couldn't appreciate a genuine challenge? Little did Kexthal know, they had just accepted the contract that would change not only their career but their entire understanding of the universe itself. Because Catherine Morrison was about to teach them something their species have forgotten long ago. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't the ability to manipulate probability, but the ability to defy it entirely. Kexthal's ship hovered invisibly above New Washington's diplomatic quarter, its crystalline hull refracting the morning sunlight into prismatic patterns. The assassin had spent 3 Earth weeks calculating the perfect accident, a masterpiece of causality that would make Catherine Morrison's death appear as nothing more than tragic misfortune. The plan was elegant in its simplicity, a cascade of transport failures that would result in a catastrophic shuttle malfunction. Kexthal had manipulated probability streams to ensure that precisely 37 different components would fail simultaneously. The chances of survival were, mathematically speaking, 0. Target approaching departure point, the ship's AI announced. Kexthal's outer layer shimmed with anticipation as they watched Morrison walking toward the diplomatic shuttle bay. She moved with that peculiar human confidence, her red diplomatic jacket standing out against the morning crowd. Everything was proceeding according to calculations. The probability streams glowed green in Kexthal's vision, confirming each predetermined event was falling into place. The shuttle's maintenance droid had already made the prescribed errors. The backup systems were primed to fail. Even the weather was cooperating, with a magnetic storm approaching that would mask any unusual energy signatures. Then Morrison stopped walking. Kexthal's probability sensors flared in alarm. This wasn't part of the calculation. Through their enhanced vision, they watched as Morrison turned toward what appeared to be a commotion outside a local establishment called the Stellar Pub. Computer, audio enhancement, Kexthal commanded, their curiosity overtaking their frustration. The sounds of an escalating bar fight filled their chamber. 2 Proximan merchants were squaring off against a young Venusian colonist, their argument about shipping rates rapidly descending into threats of violence. Morrison was walking directly toward them. No, Kexthal muttered. The probability streams were shifting, their carefully orchestrated patterns dissolving like stardust in a solar wind. The shuttle was departing in exactly 47 seconds. She needed to be on it. But Catherine Morrison, apparently oblivious to her impending doom, had other plans. She stepped between the arguing aliens, her voice carrying clearly through Kexthal's audio feed. "Gentlemen," she said, with that disarming smile that had become her diplomatic trademark, "I couldn't help but overhear your discussion about the new shipping rates. Have you considered applying for the Emerging Markets Grant? It could reduce your costs by 30%. The aliens stopped mid-argument, their attention captured. Kexthal watched in disbelief as Morrison pulled out her datapad, quickly showing them the relevant forms and regulations. The Proximan's color patterns shifted from aggressive red to interested blue, while the Venusian's bioluminescent spots pulsed with growing excitement. "In fact," Morrison continued, "I'm heading to a meeting about expanding trade route access right now, or I was supposed to be." She glanced at her watch and chuckled. "Well, looks like I'll need to catch the next shuttle. But this is more important. Let me walk you through the application process." Kexthal's probability manipulators screamed in protest as their perfect accident played out without its intended target. The diplomatic shuttle departed, its systems failing exactly as calculated. Morrison's briefcase, which had been loaded earlier by an aide, was atomized along with the shuttle in a spectacular but accidental explosion high above the city. From their vantage point, Kexthal watched as Morrison spent the next 20 minutes helping the aliens set up their grant applications, even exchanging contact information for future assistance. She had just missed her own death because she decided to stop and help resolve a random bar fight. For the first time in 3 centuries, Kexthal felt something dangerously close to respect. This human hadn't just escaped death. She'd done it by following an impulse that no probability calculation could have predicted. It was fascinating. "Computer," Kexthal commanded, their crystalline form rippling with new determination, "begin analysis of human behavioral patterns. Focus on spontaneous decision-making and its effects on probability matrices." This was no longer just a contract. This was becoming a puzzle that challenged everything Kexthal thought they knew about the universe. and they were starting to enjoy it. Kexthal's crystalline form had become a familiar sight in New Washington's shadows, though no one could actually see them. 3 Earth weeks had passed since the failed shuttle incident, and they had spent every moment studying Catherine Morrison with increasing fascination. Their observation chamber was now wallpapered with probability streams, each one tracking a different aspect of Morrison's daily life. The patterns, or rather the lack thereof, were maddening. "Replay yesterday's breakfast sequence," Kexthal commanded, their outer layer flickering with irritation. The holographic display showed Morrison walking past her usual breakfast spot, a place called Morning Meteor Cafe. "Computer, display statistical analysis." The numbers flashed before them. Morrison had eaten at Morning Meteor every Tuesday for the past 2 months. The probability of her continuing this pattern had been 98.7%. Yet yesterday, she had walked right past it. The footage continued, showing Morrison entering a small, barely noticeable establishment 3 blocks away. The sign read Zena's Earth and Beyond Cuisine. "Audio enhancement," Kexthal ordered. "I saw your going out of business sign." Morrison's voice came through clearly as she spoke to the elderly Martian proprietor. "That's just not acceptable. Your fusion dumplings are the best in the district. Have you applied for the Small Business Preservation Grant?" Kexthal watched as Morrison spent her entire breakfast hour helping the Martian navigate the complex application process. By the time she left, the restaurant owner's eye stalks were quivering with hope rather than despair. "Computer, calculate current success probability for standard elimination methods." The response was unprecedented. Insufficient data for accurate calculation. Kexthal's 4 hearts skipped simultaneously. In 3 centuries of assassination work, they had never received that response. They began pacing the chamber, their crystalline feet creating melodic tones against the floor. The problem wasn't just Morrison's random acts of kindness. It was how those acts created ripple effects through probability itself. The restaurant she'd saved would now stay open, changing the foot traffic patterns in that block, affecting delivery schedules, changing when and where hundreds of beings would eat. "Display week's movement pattern," Kexthal commanded. The holographic map showed Morrison's daily routes like tangled string. No 2 bays matched. She took different paths to work because she kept finding people who needed help. She varied her lunch schedule to support different struggling businesses. She even changed her evening routes to walk lost tourists to their destinations. Most maddening of all, she seemed to have an uncanny knack for avoiding danger without even realizing it. Last week, she'd stopped to help a child catch their runaway pet, missing a malfunctioning hover car by seconds. Yesterday, she'd been late to a meeting because she was helping an elderly human cross the street, inadvertently avoiding the poisoned air filtration system Kexthal had spent days arranging. "Computer, access cultural database. Display information on human concept, karma." The definition appeared. A spiritual concept suggesting that good deeds create positive future outcomes for the door. Kexthal's probability manipulators tingled. Could it be? Had Morrison somehow tapped into a fundamental force of the universe through nothing more than persistent kindness? Their musings were interrupted by a new alert. Morrison was deviating from her predicted path again. The screen showed her helping a group of junior diplomats carry boxes of documents into the Galactic embassy. "Begin deep pattern analysis," Kexthal ordered, their voice carrying an unfamiliar note of wonder. "Focus on correlation between subjects' altruistic actions and probability field disruptions." As they watched Morrison navigate her day like a chaos artist painting with kindness, Kexthal realized something disturbing. They were no longer studying her just to complete the contract. They were studying her because she represented something they'd never encountered before, a being who could reshape reality not through calculated manipulation, but through genuine, unplanned compassion. It was becoming unclear who was really hunting whom in this strange game, and somewhere deep in their crystalline core, Kexthal felt an alien sensation growing. doubt. Kexthal's meditation chamber had transformed into a war room. Holographic displays showed dozens of failed assassination attempts, each more elaborate than the last. Their crystalline form pulsed with an angry red glow as they reviewed the latest footage. The synth venom in Morrison's coffee. She'd given her drink to a depressed-looking Neptunian barista, claiming, "You need this more than I do." The barista's natural immunity to the toxin had rendered the attempt useless. The gravity manipulators installed in her apartment. She'd spent the night at a friend's place, pet-sitting their Venusian color-shifting cat while they were away at a conference. The manipulators had only succeeded in rearranging her furniture into an oddly artistic configuration. "Begin execution of Operation Microhunter," Kexthal commanded, their voice carrying an edge of desperation. This plan had taken weeks to prepare. A swarm of microscopic hunter drones programmed to look like ordinary dust motes. They would enter Morrison's lungs and cause what would appear to be a natural respiratory failure. The probability streams showed a 99.9% success rate. Even Morrison's chaos-inducing kindness couldn't save her from something she couldn't see. Through their surveillance feed, Kexthal watched as Morrison entered her office at the Galactic Embassy. The hunter drones were already in position, floating innocently in the air. Running final systems check, the computer announced, "Hunter drones active and..." The alert cut off as Morrison's office suddenly filled with a crackling blue field of energy. "What is that?" Kexthal demanded, their form shifting to an agitated yellow. The audio feed captured Morrison's delighted voice. "Oh, the static clean force field works. I wasn't sure if I should open Mom's birthday gift early, but with all this dust lately. Sorry, little dust motes. You'll have to stay outside." Kexthal watched in horror as their billion-credit hunter drone swarm was caught in the field, their microscopic circuits fried by what turned out to be nothing more than a glorified air purifier. Computer, replay probability calculations. The numbers still showed 99.9% success rate. It should have worked. It would have worked on any other being in the galaxy. But Morrison had once again defied probability through what appeared to be pure random chance. Kexthal's outer layer cracked slightly, a sign of extreme stress in their species. They began pacing the chamber, their crystalline feet creating a symphony of frustrated chimes. "Display current contract parameters," they ordered. The holographic reminder was clear. 2 Earth weeks remained until the Galactic Trade Summit. 2 weeks to eliminate Catherine Morrison in a way that appeared accidental. The payment had even been increased, suggesting their employer was growing impatient. But how do you kill someone who unconsciously bent probability itself? How do you orchestrate an accident for someone who surfed chaos like a cosmic wave? Through their surveillance, they watched Morrison dealing with the aftermath of their latest failure. Instead of being suspicious or afraid, she was excitedly showing the static clean field to her colleagues, recommending they get one for their families too. "It's amazing," she was saying, "and it's made by a small business on Earth. We should include them in our presentation at the summit. Imagine the potential for clean air technology across the galaxy." Kexthal felt their probability manipulators twitch. Even their failed assassination attempt was somehow turning into a positive diplomatic opportunity in Morrison's hands. Computer, begin analysis of all failed attempts. Find common pattern. The response came quickly. Pattern found. Targets random acts of kindness create cascading probability disruptions. Kexthal stared at the analysis, their crystalline mind racing. They had spent centuries mastering the art of manipulating probability to cause death. But Morrison, without even trying, was manipulating it to create life, opportunity, and connection. For the first time in their career, Kexthal wondered if they weren't just failing their mission. They were learning something profound about the nature of the universe itself. Kexthal's meditation chamber had become a shrine to chaos theory. Every surface sparkled with holographic probability streams, each one tracking a different ripple effect created by Catherine Morrison's actions. Their crystalline form shifted through shades of deep purple as they attempted to process what they were witnessing. Replay morning sequence, they commanded, their voice unusually quiet. The scene materialized. Morrison stopping to help an alien child who had lost their parent in the crowded spaceport. A simple act, seemingly insignificant. But Kexthol's probability monitors told a different story. Display causality web. The holographic display exploded with connecting lines. The lost child was the offspring of a Centaurian trade minister. The parent, upon finding their child safely in Morrison's care, arrived late to a crucial vote. This delay gave them time to reconsider their position on Earth's trade proposal. The minister's changed vote influenced 3 other species representatives, creating a swing in favor of Earth's inclusion in the major trade routes. 17 new probability lines had spawned from that single act of kindness. Computer, display secondary effects. The web grew larger. The child, impressed by the human's kindness, had decided to study Earth culture. Their parent, grateful for Morrison's help, had begun advocating for increased cultural exchange programs. The security guard who witnessed the interaction had adjusted his previously negative view of humans. "This is impossible," Kexthol whispered, their outer layer rippling with disbelief. In all their centuries of probability manipulation, they had never seen anything like this. They weren't just watching probability branches, they were watching the creation of entirely new possibilities. "Begin deep space-time analysis," they ordered. The chamber filled with quantum calculations as the computer processed their request. Kexthol waited, their 4 hearts beating in an irregular pattern of anticipation. The results appeared, and for the first time in 3 centuries, Kexthol actually staggered. Morrison wasn't just affecting probability. She was generating it. Every random act of kindness created new quantum possibilities that shouldn't exist. When she stopped to give directions to a lost tourist, 30 new probability lines emerged. When she helped an elderly Martian with their heavy shopping, 40 more spawned. Computer, calculate total new probability lines generated by target in past month. The number that appeared was so large it took up half the chamber. 147,892 new possibilities, each branching into thousands more. Kexthol's species had spent millennia learning to manipulate existing probability. They had never imagined that probability itself could be generated through simple acts of spontaneous kindness. Through their surveillance feed, they watched Morrison in real time. She was leaving her office, heading to what should have been a routine diplomatic meeting. But she stopped to help a maintenance worker fix a malfunctioning cleaning drone. Kexthol's probability sensors nearly overloaded as they watched new future possibilities bloom like cosmic flowers around her. The maintenance worker would remember her kindness, leading them to pay more attention to the drone's unusual malfunction, which would lead to the discovery of a critical flaw in the drone's programming, preventing a potential security breach at the upcoming summit. Computer, access historical database. Display information on human concept. Butterfly effect. The definition appeared. The sensitive dependence on initial conditions in which a small change in one state can result in large differences in a later state. Kexthol's crystalline form hummed with revelation. Their species had mastered probability through careful calculation and manipulation. But humans, or at least this human, did something far more powerful. They created new possibilities through nothing more than genuine compassion and spontaneous kindness. In their 3 centuries of existence, Kexthol had never failed to eliminate a target. But as they watched Morrison unknowingly weave new realities into existence with each small act of kindness, they realized they weren't failing to kill her. They were witnessing something far more significant: the birth of new futures, created not through calculation, but through chaos and compassion. The early morning light filtered through the windows of Catherine Morrison's office in the Galactic Embassy, casting rainbow refractions across her collection of diplomatic gifts. She was reviewing trade proposals when the air before her desk shimmered like heat waves over desert sand. Stolb materialized in their full crystalline glory, 7 feet of translucent alien assassin towering over her desk. Their form cycled through colors, deep purple to midnight blue to threatening red. Morrison looked up from her datapad, pushed her glasses up her nose, and smiled. "The chocolate donuts are better than the plain ones," she said, gesturing to a box on her desk. "Would you like coffee with that? You seem like you could use some." Kexthal's outer layer rippled with shock, their probability manipulators registering impossible readings. The human's heart rate hadn't even increased. There was no fear response, no spike in adrenaline, not even a slight tremor in her voice. "You are not surprised to see me," they said, their harmonics carrying a note of confusion. "Oh, I've known about you for weeks," Morrison replied, standing up to pour 2 cups of coffee from her personal maker. The shuttle explosion was pretty clever, by the way. And those microscopic hunter drones. Super creative. Milk or sugar? Kexthal's 4 hearts skipped simultaneously. "You knew about the assassination attempts." "Well, when your briefcase gets atomized in a shuttle explosion, you start paying attention." She handed them a coffee mug that read "Best Diplomat in the Galaxy," a joke gift from her staff. "The real question is, why does someone want me dead badly enough to hire the legendary crystal assassin?" Kexthal accepted the mug automatically, their crystalline fingers creating soft chimes against the ceramic. "You know who I am." "Please, I'm a diplomat. Research is what I do." Morrison sat back down, gesturing for them to take the visitor's chair. 300 years of perfect kills across 47 species. You're quite famous in certain circles, though I have to say, your recent attempts have been getting a bit sloppy. Is everything okay? The assassins stared at their coffee, watching the swirls create miniature probability vortexes. "You continued your normal routines despite knowing your life was in danger. What's the alternative? Living in fear, stopping my work, giving up on helping people." She took a sip of her coffee. "That sounds like a terrible way to live. Besides, your attempts kept failing in increasingly entertaining ways. I mean, that gravity manipulator thing actually improved my furniture arrangement." "Your random acts of kindness," Kexthal said slowly, their voice carrying harmonics of wonder. "They were deliberate. The helping people part, of course. The way it kept accidentally foiling your plans." She grinned. "That was just a delightful bonus. Though I have to admit, it did make me think about the nature of karma." Kexthal's form shifted to a deep blue of contemplation. "You generate new probability lines through acts of compassion. It is unprecedented." "Is that what I do?" Morrison leaned forward, genuinely interested. "I just try to help where I can. Make things a little better. Create connections. Speaking of which," she pulled up a document on her datapad. "Want to tell me about who hired you? Because I have some theories about why certain parties might be nervous about Earth joining the major trade routes." Hill studied her for a long moment. In 3 centuries of assassination work, they had never encountered a target who offered them coffee and conversation, who knew about their attempts and responded with curiosity rather than fear, who saw the universe not as a series of calculable probabilities, but as an endless stream of opportunities to create positive change. "Your death would generate no new possibilities," they said finally. "Only end them." Morrison's smile softened. "That might be the nicest thing an assassin has ever said to me." More coffee. Kexthal stood in their meditation chamber aboard their cloaked ship, surrounded by holographic displays of their contract. The payment amount glowed mockingly, now triple the original offer. Their employer was getting desperate as the Galactic Trade Summit approached. Their conversation with Catherine Morrison played on repeat in their mind, creating discordant harmonics in their crystalline form. For the first time in 3 centuries, they faced a choice that probability calculations couldn't solve. "Computer, display historical record of previous missions." The chamber filled with images, 300 years of perfect kills, each target eliminated with mathematical precision. Each death carefully orchestrated to appear as nothing more than unfortunate circumstance. "Display current probability calculations for target Morrison." The numbers flickered and shifted, refusing to stabilize. Morrison's influence had spread too far, created too many new possibilities. Eliminating her now would be like trying to stop a supernova by catching its light in a jar. "You know," Morrison's voice came through their surveillance feed. She was working late in her office again. "The funny thing about trade routes is that they're really about connections. Money flows, yes, but so do ideas, culture, innovation." She was speaking to a young intern from one of the outer colonies, someone who'd stopped by her office for advice. Kexthal watched as new probability lines bloomed around the interaction. "Computer, calculate total positive outcomes generated by target in past month." The results appeared, stretching from floor to ceiling. Millions of small improvements in countless lives. A shopkeeper whose business was saved. The lost child reunited with their parent. The diplomatic crisis averted through a simple act of kindness. Each small action creating ripples that would affect generations to come. Kexthal's outer layer cracked slightly as realization struck them. Their species had spent millennia perfecting the art of probability manipulation, believing it made them superior. But in doing so, they had become prisoners of their own perfection. They could calculate 1 trillion possible deaths, but couldn't generate a single new possibility. "Computer, access personal memory core. Display first mission record." The image that appeared showed a younger Kexthal, their form less crystallized, less rigid. Back then, they had taken pride not just in completing missions, but in understanding them, in knowing why each target had been chosen. Why was Catherine Morrison chosen? They asked aloud, their voice carrying harmonics of dawning understanding. The answer was clear in the contract details. Because she created change. Because she made connections. Because she showed the galaxy that humanity's chaotic, compassionate nature wasn't a weakness. It was a force that could reshape reality itself. Kexthal's form shifted to a deep, clear blue as they made their decision. Their probability manipulators hummed with newfound purpose as they began generating their resignation notice. The message was simple. Contract terminated. Target generates maximum positive probability outcomes. Elimination would decrease universal potential. Payment returned with interest. They added a personal note. Some possibilities are worth more than perfect records. As they sent the message, their probability sensors detected something remarkable. Their choice had just generated 17 new possibility lines of its own. For the first time in their existence, they weren't just manipulating probability. They were creating it. Through their surveillance feed, they watched Morrison finishing her conversation with the intern. She was explaining how small acts of kindness could change the galaxy more effectively than any trade agreement. Sometimes, she was saying, you have to trust that doing the right thing will create possibilities you never imagined. Kexthal's crystalline form resonated with the truth of those words. They had spent centuries as the galaxy's most perfect killer. Perhaps it was time to become something else entirely, a creator of possibilities rather than an ender of them. The computer chimed softly, new probability lines detected. Kexthal smiled, an expression their species rarely used. "I know," they said. "I made them myself." The Galactic Trade Summit's main chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 100 worlds shifted uncomfortably in their seats as Catherine Morrison took the podium. But it wasn't her trade proposal drawing their attention. It was the crystalline figure standing beside her. "Distinguished delegates," Morrison began, her voice clear and confident. "I'm here to talk about possibilities. Not just trade routes and economic opportunities, but the fundamental forces that shape our galaxy." Kexthal's form shimmered with subtle colors as they activated their probability sensors. The chamber was alive with potential futures, each one branching and multiplying like stars being born. "My colleague," Morrison gestured to Kexthal, "represents a species that mastered probability itself. They can calculate and manipulate the likelihood of any event." She smiled. "They were also recently hired to assassinate me." A wave of shocked murmurs swept through the chamber. Security drones whirred to life. only to be waved down by Morrison's calm gesture. But something fascinating happened instead. They discovered that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology, our resources, or even our diplomatic skills. It's our ability to generate new possibilities through simple acts of compassion and connection. Kexthal stepped forward, their crystalline voice carrying harmonics of certainty. My species has spent millennia learning to manipulate probability. But humanity creates it. Every random act of kindness, every spontaneous decision to help another being, generates new future possibilities that no calculation could predict. The chamber's holographic displays came to life, showing the probability webs that had spawned from Morrison's actions over the past months. The network of connections, opportunities, and positive changes spread across the galaxy like a luminous spider's web. This is why I could not complete my contract, Kexthal continued. To eliminate Catherine Morrison would be to destroy a source of new possibilities. It would make the universe smaller, not larger. Morrison nodded. Earth doesn't just want to join your trade routes. We want to share this gift with the galaxy. The Institute for Probabilistic Innovation that we're proposing wouldn't just study these phenomena. It would teach beings from all worlds how to generate new possibilities of their own. The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives began to understand the implications. Kexthal's probability sensors detected hundreds of new future lines spawning from this moment alone. My first act, as the Institute's chief probability officer, Kexthal announced, their form glowing with pride, was to track down those who hired me. The evidence has been submitted to the Galactic Council. It seems some possibilities are too dangerous to leave unexplored. The following hours were a blur of signatures, agreements, and history being made. Earth wasn't just joining the trade routes, it was becoming a central hub for an entirely new field of study. The science of possibility generation would change the galaxy forever. Later, in Morrison's office, she and Kexthal shared their customary cup of coffee. You know, Morrison said, most beings would have kept the assassination contract a secret. Revealing it was quite a risk. Kexthal's form sparkled with amusement. I have learned that the greatest probability manipulator in the universe is truth spoken with compassion. It creates possibilities that deception never could. Speaking of possibilities, Morrison grinned, sliding a datapad across her desk. Wait until you see the applications for our first semester of students. Turns out there are a lot of beings interested in learning how to generate new futures. Kexthal's probability sensors hummed with joy as they scanned the list. Beings from across the galaxy, each one a potential generator of new possibilities. Their species had spent centuries learning to predict the future. Now, they would learn something far more valuable: how to create it. More coffee? Morrison offered, already knowing the answer. Always, Kexthal replied, their form shifting to a warm, peaceful gold. After all, the probability of good things happening over coffee is remarkably high. Morrison laughed. Now you're getting it.